everyone! Hi, beautiful and kind human being, Mrs. Eliza. How are you? Today, in this video, I will give instruction on how to learn sew as beginners. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Naira Putri Anjani, English education student at Unindra. And now, let's go to the video. How to sew clothes for beginners is the first step you can learn to make clothes. Sewing is putting together fabric parts that have been cut based on the pattern and in line with the design. The purpose of sewing is to form a seam connection by combining an appearance that meets the standards of economical production process. The sewing technique you use should be adjusted to design and materials of the clothing itself. For those of you who are still beginners in the world of sewing, let's just look at how to sew clothes for beginners below. Prepare the tools and materials needed to sew clothes, starting from needles, threads, scissors, and shirt patterns. Insert the thread into the needle hole that will be used, then make a knot as a thread barrier. Poke the needle into the inside of the clothing pattern. Remember, be careful in using the needle, then sew until all the patterns are connected. After all the garment patterns are connected, turn the shirt over and make sure all the patterns have been sewn neatly. Cut the thread if there is any leftover thread for sewing. After that, make a knot to limit the stitches. To make stitches more neat, you need to apply the following tips to learn how to sew clothes. First, have a strong will. When learning to sew, you can start if you really have a great willingness to learn to sew. This makes it easier for you to learn sewing techniques so that your stitching results are good and satisfying. Second, learn to focus. Having a high level of focus is the main thing that a tailor needs to have. You need to learn to manage yourself so that you can focus while learning one sewing technique. If you can master one sewing technique, you can try other techniques to learn. Third, prepare tools and materials for sewing. Sewing equipment and materials are the main support when you learn to sew. The tools and materials you need to prepare include measuring tape, fabric, scissors, rule, hand needle, thread, pencil or chalk, needles, and sewing machine. 4. Learn basic sewing techniques. Sewing techniques that you can learn as a beginner are straight, circular, and locking stitches. You can use scrap paper or fabric to learn sewing first to avoid wasting more stitching materials. And the last, try simple sewing. Once you are confident that you are good enough with basic sewing techniques, you can try learning to sew with existing clothes. You can try sewing a pocket on a shirt or even a pillowcase to start learning sewing. Now, we have one shirt with a hole. Let's sew it up. to sew clothes for beginners that you can use as a guide when learning to sew. Keep practicing your sewing skill gradually and consistently so that your stitching result will get better. That's all the details related to the steps and tips from this video. Hopefully it can be useful for all of you. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye bye.